Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us. My name is Kathy Sipple, and you are attending So You Want to Be a Writer. And this is hosted by me, Kathy Sipple, as well as my organization that I started earlier this year called cothrive.org. And Lisa and Sue, who are on here, both have been active members of CoThrive. And Stephen Donaco, who was scheduled to be one of our panelists, unfortunately, is not going to be able to be here live today, but we are going to be doing another follow-up event to cover his material in depth. So at CoThrive, we're always presenting these types of informative webinars and work sessions. Sometimes one kind of merges into another. This one is open to the public, so whether you're a member or whether you're not, we're awfully glad you're here, and we hope that you'll take away some great information. So I thought we'd start this journey or this discussion with, what does it mean to be a writer? And I'll just, start out with what it means to me personally. Probably giving my age away here, but when I was a kid and I was growing up, it certainly to me meant books, maybe books and magazines basically. There was no online back in the 70s when I was a young, impressionable reader, and going to my local library, it was all about the books and maybe sometimes magazines. But as I got into college and immediately after college, that was kind of the advent of the internet. And certainly writing and being a writer has expanded to that realm. That's nothing probably newsworthy for most of you. We all read content all the time. But just wanted to kind of expose you to the ideas of what it means, how you can get out there as a writer. And it's not necessarily an either or, could be a both and, or get started here. And here's how this path could look for you. Okay, so early experiences of my online writing, certainly we all did some writing probably in high school, college. We had to write essays, and I have to say that wasn't the time when I was really thinking, ooh, I want to be a writer, because you're on deadline, you're getting graded. But as I moved out into the world, one of my more recent career experiences before going into social media marketing was as a realtor. And so I had done some blogging as a realtor. So that's the example on the left-hand side, 2007. That was a blog I contributed to, and it was called Active Rain. It's pretty much around real estate and realtors, just asking realtors to submit content either about the real estate market or their niche. And to be honest, I did that, but I was really doing that to try to get business. I'm not going to say my heart wasn't in it, but I was a real estate agent specializing in acreage property. So I did try to be helpful. I was writing content about, getting well tests, getting surveys done, that kind of thing. But honestly, it wasn't a really deep topic or deep, area where I felt compelled to write content, constantly. So that was for business. And then along came 2008, and I started on a little something called hubpages.com. I honestly haven't been there in quite a long time. And I think I had submitted all of probably 2 different articles. But it was intriguing to me that you could submit articles there without having to host your own blog, very similar to Active Rain. And you could tag it, you could categorize it, you could kind of interact with other people who were submitting articles. And kind of ironic, but this was in July of 2008. And very soon, I had a writing experience of a completely different nature, and I'm going to kind of show that on the next slide. My one and only person who was really my follower on HubPages was my sister Julie, who was in Detroit at the time. And just days or weeks after we were both posting our first, post contributions on HubPages, I got a panicked call from our other sister in Detroit saying that Julie, my sister, had lost consciousness and had been hospitalized in a hospital in Detroit, Henry Ford Hospital. And boy, it was pretty terrifying. She was actually in a coma for close to a month and was hospitalized for about 6 months. And during that time, I began to write for a very personal purpose, and that was to communicate with people who cared for Julie via a patient blog site called Care Pages. So you can make those private or you can make them public. Most people do tend to make them private and invite, a select audience of people who know about the patient. you don't necessarily want to put that information, out there for the world to see if you're talking about, you know, people's medical health. And so anyway, this was the first time in my life where I just felt like it was my duty to communicate regularly, almost daily, to an audience that actually cared about what I had to say. They were relying on me to communicate back information about my sister. And so this felt really, really different to me than writing, kind of a gamer article, not really gamer, but I was trying to game the SEO system, trying to game Google to get people to my real estate site so that they would buy a house for me. And all of a sudden, I was writing from my heart, I was writing for information, and, really, in some ways, just felt like I was writing for my sister's life. So the good news is she was released from the hospital in January 2009, and her story, because she had so many people interacting with her blog and her, it was her medical community, it was her friends, her family, other people whose lives that she had touched. I think she's a rock star, so that's probably why, it was good. But some people said my writing helped as well. So I have to say, for the first time in my life, after that experience, I really started to see myself as somebody maybe who could be a writer, which was pretty interesting. So when she was out of the woods, I came back home to Valparaiso, Indiana, where I now live, and thought, what do I do with these newfound skills? I know a little something about writing. I know something about, social media, which were the tools that we used to promote her case. And I started on a personal blog site, which is a free site on WordPress.com, and just named it My Social Media Coach, and started, kind of writing about what I knew, which was being at the crossroads of having something to write about for personal and for business. So, that's what started me, and what I've been doing for really almost the last 7 years is social media coaching for businesses and nonprofits, and just who I call non-traditional marketers, people that know that they have something to say, whether it's a business or whether it's a cause. Those are the people that really make my heart go pitter-patter. And so the cool thing that I love about social media and just doing what you do out there in the world is that your words leave what I call a digital cookie crumb trail, if you will. You use these words, and crawlers like Google can find them, and they help people find you. And I've got up on screen here a very special email to me that was in June of 2013 from Sue Erda, who is our next panelist. If you're wondering, aren't there supposed to be panelists, Kathy? When are you going to stop talking? I am kind of put this in story form so that we can introduce the different types of writing as they were presented to me. But Sue said, I found you on Facebook, and, I represent this publisher that does empowerment analogy books for women, but now recently that's expanded to men. They've got a title that will welcome male writers as well. And basically it's a deal where each writer contributes one chapter, and then Sue and her Crackerjack team help to give the writers all that they need to be successful. So I gladly took the leap and said, yes, Sue, I will be the social media trainer for your authors, and in fact, I would like to be one of your authors. And it has just been such a wonderful experience. And so I want to introduce Sue and let her tell a little bit about her publishing firm, about the upcoming titles, and just about kind of what it looks like to be an author with her. So take it away, Sue.
Awesome. Kathy, thank you so much for allowing me and inviting me to be here and to talk to all these people who are so interested in writing, because writing is a gift. It's a huge gift. No matter what skill level you think you are as a writer, it's a gift to yourself and to anybody that gets to read whatever you write. So I love that. And Kathy, I love what you're doing, bringing the topic to people, because so many people are passionate about writing, and a lot of people, though, are afraid of writing. It's really kind of funny, and that's what we have found with the authors that we've helped, and we've helped more than 150 people become published authors, and that's just been in the past 5 years. And it's really kind of amazing, though, because people come to us and they say, oh, I'm a terrible writer, and then they submit their piece to us, and it's beautiful because it's really right from their heart. And, that's one of the things about writing that is so cool, is that, if you just, to me, that's what I relate to. Is, if you write from your heart, that's really where the story lies. That's, Kathy started this out beautifully by telling a story, to us in story form, because that's what it's all about. People love stories. They relate to stories. They learn from stories. They can feel more through a story. So it's really a wonderful medium to be able to share your story with somebody and teach lessons along the way. And that's what we kind of do with our anthology books. And we started our publishing actually 5 years ago because we also have a women's networking organization, Powerful You Women's Network, and that is something that we started almost 11 years ago now. And what we learned from the networking process is that's all about stories too. Whenever people are out there networking, and the people that other people listen to, they're the ones who create the story. They're not the people that are out there just saying, here's my product and here are the benefits and here's, why you should buy it. It's about, hey, I had this client one time and this is what they did and this is this is what their life was like, and now they use this product, and then this is what happened for them. And it's a story that engages us. It's a story that draws us in, and it's a story that makes us want to learn more and maybe to partner with somebody else. So we thought, wow, this happens in networking all the time. What if we give an opportunity for people to share their stories in a bigger, broader way to a bigger, broader audience, and this story would engage people and draw it to them. So it's very interesting, the stories that we have, the different types of titles that we've had so far have been all about consciousness and other things like that. So we've had two books titled Women Living Consciously, Book 1 and Book 2. We did a book titled Journey to Joy, one titled Pathways to Vibrant Health and Well-Being, and one titled Empowering Transformations for Women. So those, as you can tell by the titles, they're all stories about basically transformation, things that people have been through in their lives and what they learned along the way and how they made it through, and just really, it's kind of like that hero's journey. Where was I and what did I go through, and now here I am. And it really is very encouraging. It's very hopeful. It's really, a lot of stuff in there is that authors shared were things that people really can bring into their own life and use in their own life. So that's what I love about what we do. And the way that we do this, is that what you want me to talk about, Kathy?
Yeah, that is just great. Okay. Everything you're saying is right on point. Mm-hmm. Okay,
terrific. So, the screen that you're looking at online, you'll see that those are our two upcoming titles that we have. We actually have one, Keys to Conscious Business Growth. It's a teaching guide for entrepreneurs. And so this will contain stories of by entrepreneurs, people who have been there, done it, they've grown their business in some way, or they are coaches or trainers or consultants or mentors who are out there, and they are teaching people how to grow their businesses while staying aligned with their values, their innermost values, their heart-centered businesses. And so how do you do that? So that book will contain both lessons and stories from the people who are out there, in the trenches, if you will, and teaching other people along the way. The other book that we have up and coming is Healthy, Abundant, and Wise, and that is a book that talks about stories in any of those topics. So it could be about abundance and well-being, abundance of well-being. It could be about money issues. A lot of people go through financial things in their lives. Myself, I've actually had to file for bankruptcy many years ago after my father died, and we had a business together, and that was a whole. Boy, that was an upheaval. All at the same time, there was money stuff, and my father passed, and it was, wow, that was a lot for me as a 32-year-old at the time. But then there's the wise stories. Okay, so these are stories of wisdom, things that, like I talked about, stories of transformation. What have people been through? What have they gone through? And what wisdom do they attract and learn so that they can share it with other people? So these are various types of stories. They're going to have different audiences, obviously. One is going to be for entrepreneurs. The other is really a book for anybody who's on some sort of spiritual or conscious path in their life. So we're gathering authors for both of those books right now. And what we do with our anthology publishing process, what it is kind of a streamlined way to become an author. Because so many people think about writing a book, and immediately just thinking about it, it stops you, because it's like, wow, how can I write 100 pages or 150 or 200 or 300 pages? How am I going to do this? What is the information? Yeah, I have a lot to share. I've got a lot of stuff, but that's a commitment. I mean, that's a huge commitment to be able to do that. And sometimes people write a book and it takes years, 5 years, 10 years, or they start a book and never finish it, And there are so many people that have a dream to become a published author that just don't get around to it because it seems like an overwhelming task, an overwhelming project. And so what we've done is streamlined it to say, hey, look, you've got a message, and you have kind of an aligned message with a lot of other people. So why don't we gather all these authors together who have similar messages, but very different stories that they're going to be telling. And let's put you all together in this book. You each get a chapter in the book, and then this book is something that you can use as a platform for your business. So it's kind of this jumping off point that says, hey, I've written this story. Here's, as a snippet of my life, because obviously you can't tell your whole life story in a chapter, but you can say, here's a snippet of something that happened to me, something that was profound in my life that I learned from, that I know that if you read my story, you're going to learn from it too. So you can share that in a chapter. And then you move on and use that book as a platform to market your business, to market yourself as a speaker, to get speaking engagements, which is one of the big things that happen for people when you're a published author. I know I wrote my own book. About 8 years ago, I wrote my first book, and it was titled Powerful Intentions, Everyday Gratitude. And it was a day book. Basically, you read a page a day. It had some inspiration for the day, a quote, gratitude in there, an intention for the day. And when I had that book, it was kind of interesting because I had been doing speaking engagements already. I would go around to different networks. I would go to women's groups and things like that. And then one of the women who heard me speak, she came up to me and said, hey, we're having our United Way annual fundraiser. Would you like to be our keynote speaker? And I was like, sure. And she said, well, how much do you charge? And that was actually the first time that anybody had asked me how much I charged to do speaking. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. And from that, I started getting more paid speaking engagements. So that was really kind of interesting to me because it wasn't even my intention. It wasn't even, it was on my radar because I knew that I eventually wanted to do stuff like that. But at the time, I didn't know that my book was going to be the entree for that to happen for me. So that's something that could happen for you too. Excuse me, even as an author in an anthology book, because we've had many of our authors who have had similar experiences. They've been asked to write contributing authors to blogs or to online magazines or to regular magazines. We have one woman in Connecticut, I believe, who was, it was Connecticut, who was asked to be a contributing author and a writer in a newspaper, do a monthly column in this local newspaper thing. And we had people who have gotten TV gigs. We had one of our authors who is in Staten Island, and she was asked, she got 7 episodes on, I think it was called Mob Wives, and she was like the coach to the Mob Wives, and the show's no longer on, but that was really cool because she got to be on TV and to be a coach to these women who are going through some tough and weird things in their lives, and she was a coach online for that. And so you never know what will happen when you put yourself out there. And the beauty of an anthology book too, and writing, having a book is one thing. Okay, so you write your story, you get it down there, you write even your whole book, whatever it is, then you have to do something with it because, a lot of people, they get involved, they get excited, and then their books just sit there in a case, and they don't do anything. So it's really what you do with it also. And that's one of the things, if you are already an author or if you're out there in some way, you'll see on the page that you're looking at on our website, which is powerfulpublishing.com, we actually did a call about how authors make money, and it's not really what you think. You don't make money from selling books. It's all the other stuff that you actually do with your book and with the platform that you have now created and you have available to you, what you do with that to get out there in a bigger, broader way. So that's something that I would say, a book doesn't bring you fame and fortune. It doesn't just bring you money. It doesn't bring you business necessarily. It's a vehicle for that, and you have to do something with it. So you can certainly listen to our call on that. It's a webinar that you can listen to anytime you want. But so what I would say to you is if you have this desire to get out there in a bigger, broader way and be a writer, do it. Just do it. Don't wait. There's so many people that have this dream of being a writer that just don't do anything about it. They have a dream of getting published. They don't do anything about it. Just get out there and do something to get yourself out there and just start writing for yourself. And that's the way I started writing. I actually was interested in writing when I was a kid. And when I was in college, I took creative writing classes. I spent a semester in England, and I took all English classes and writing classes over there. And it was really cool because I was in a whole different country, a whole different place in my life, and I was able to really just expand my ability to write creatively, and that was really great. Of course, there's business writing too, and there's other types of writing that you might want to think about. So for instance, I'm talking about writing stories, and that's one thing, and you could certainly get and share lots of lessons through stories, but you can also do technical writing, or you can actually write so that it's all teaching, and that's something that many people create a whole book and it says here's the steps to, or here's a how-to book or a how-to article and all the steps to it. So there are different ways of writing. One thing that we do, and Kathy, should I go on just a little bit more about our publishing, or do you want to maybe stop for a little bit?
Yeah, no, if you don't mind, I'm just going to layer on my praise and my view of the experience. Certainly I was very happy to be included among those benefits that you offer to authors to help them, do something with the book. I also want to say, you have somebody on your team that helps coach authors on how to get speaking gigs, how to, develop topics for speaking gigs. You have people also on the team who help develop products that support the book. So if you've got a custom program that is in alignment with what your chapter was about, I mean, it's really like a full spectrum of services that these authors get, and an editor, of course, which I personally found very thrilling to be able to just drop, in conversation, oh, I need to speak with my editor in New York. I mean, that was just the thrill of a lifetime. And I mean, not only was it, just a thrill, it was actually super, super helpful because I had never had somebody to work with like that on my writing. So it was a great experience for me. And although you can't necessarily guarantee it, I think you and Kathy, your other partner at Powerful You Publishing, have had enough experience that it's a pretty good likelihood that almost every title I think so far that you've published ends up being an Amazon #1 bestseller. And I'm sure you have a secret formula for that a little bit, but I have a feeling it's partially to do with, I mean, obviously your expertise, but also being a part of a co-creating team, where you've got all of these people pulling for the same outcome is really, it's empowering. And I loved having the book, was a thrill. Also being associated with these other awesome people who are in the book, it became almost like a sisterhood or a networking among those people. Met all kinds of great new contacts, added a bunch of new professional contacts to my LinkedIn network, and people that I have talked with outside of the book experience and have gone on to network about other things, which is great. But all of that you said, I would wholeheartedly agree. And I want to say you also can support people who want to publish not in an anthology. That's tough to say. Is that correct?
Well, we're just starting to do that. We're looking at doing individually authored books right now. We're talking to a couple of people who have, three of them have a manuscript actually, and two of them have ideas for manuscripts. We're talking to them about how we would do that. So that's a little bit of a departure for us from what we've been doing, but it's definitely something that we're open to and we're exploring right now because we're trying to just put in the structures. I mean, obviously, it's easy to do for us because we know how to publish a book. We know all the steps that are involved and all of that, and we have professionals in place to help us with every part along the way. And yet, it's just different. The one thing that you just said, Kathy, that was really important about this is, as part of an anthology, you are part of a team, really. It's this gathering of people who are like-minded, who have a similar goal, in that we all want the book to get out there in a big, broader way, because whenever we have, for instance, 30 or 40 authors in one of these books, all 30 or 40 authors are out there selling these books and distributing these books, giving them away as part of their packages or giving them away or however they're getting them out there. So, if you can imagine, if there's 40 people in a book, and we have different publishing packages for 100 up to 400 books, but if everybody got 100 books, that's 4,000 books that are out there that with your story in it. Now, if you were going to do it on your own, you had your own book, how are you going to reach those 4,000 people? So it's really kind of interesting because you're reaching an aligned audience too. So it's great to be a part of this team and this sisterhood, if you will, and now we've expanded to men. We've opened it up to men, so men are open to any of the books that we're doing right now. They're not just for women, they're for men too. So yeah, we'd love any of you to be a part of this team because that's what really makes it work. You talked about the Amazon bestseller. We did 5 books so far. Our first book was an Amazon top 10 bestseller, and the next 4 were all Amazon #1 bestsellers. We did find the formula to make that happen. We feel comfortable with all of our anthologies that we'll be able to make that happen every time in the future. There's some things about, and if you're doing your own book and self-publishing on your own, there are ways to do that. If you look it up online, you can find out how to, get to Amazon bestseller status, which not necessarily #1, but it's the same formulas, but there are certain categories that you get to choose for your book, and so if you do it strategically and you choose the right categories and you get a team behind you, meaning for us it's all our authors, but then we also have partners that we work with who they promote the book for us. You've probably seen these bestseller campaigns. Actually, you may or may not have recognized that's what was happening. You might get an email from somebody or see something on Facebook that says, if you buy this book today, you get, not only do you get the book when you buy it from Amazon, but then you go back to our website and you can get all of these gifts from all of our partners. So there might be 100 gifts, there could be 30 gifts, whatever it is, you get all those gifts that are free. And so we have our own partners in place that help us, and so they're out there promoting the book to all of their lists really, whenever we do a campaign, we're reaching more than 500,000 people that these lists go out to, that this information goes out to on launch day. So that's how on launch day we get to be an Amazon #1 bestseller. There's a lot that gets involved. I very much simplified it for you, but that's, we do know how to do that. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I do want to mention that Kathy brought up is that, as part of our publishing package, and you'll see that there are other people that are out there doing anthology books, and there's a lot of different ways for them to structure their packages. We thought it was really important to include training from different sources. So Kathy's right, we have a whole team in place that does that. She is part of our team. She is our social media trainer for this. We also have somebody that talks about WordPress blogs, how to use them, how to create them, how to make it, use that as a platform for growing your business. And the reason I just want to say before I tell you what the rest is, the reason we do this is because we know that you're not just doing a book. Most people aren't just doing it just to get their story out there. They're doing it so they can have a platform for their business, so they have something to talk about. Even if you're like a health coach or something, so now you have your story in there, and you say, look, I want to get out there and help more people get healthy. Well, now you have a story. Now what do you do with it? So that's why we brought these trainers in, to help you grow your business and use your book in part of this. So there's our social media training. We do have a public speaking training and how to get speaking gigs. We have somebody who teaches about information product creation. How do you decide what type of information products to create? How do you market them? We also have someone who does soulful sales training, which is really terrific. And, because, again, it's all about, we feel like, having a heart in our business is really one of the most important things. And so she talks about it from the heart, soulful sales. So it's not something that, everybody has this thing about, ooh, I don't really want to sell. But, of course, it's, when you're doing it in a heart-centered way, it really doesn't feel like selling so much as it feels like helping. And that's really what that whole positioning is, and the mindset training that goes into that. So yeah, we have, it's a complete package. It's not just the editing and the proofreading and the layout and the cover design and the best-selling package. It's also the support that comes along with that. And it's really fulfilling for us to do, and our authors are thrilled to be a part of it, like Kathy is. And so I'm just thrilled for anybody that wants to explore this further to explore it with us.
And I would just encourage you, if any of this sounds interesting, go ahead and go to powerfullyoupublishing.com and click, the sign up, so you can go to the events that they host periodically. It's a free on-demand webinar, how authors make money. It's not what you think. They've got other, webinars that they host periodically, sometimes particular to an upcoming title, so that you can drill down and learn a little bit more about, the details, the, pricing, the title, the types of stories. But it's just a great organization to kind of help you get the training wheels on being a part of that first book. And so just because you mentioned health coaches, I do want to say I've had the pleasure, the opportunity of working with at least a couple different health coaches I can think of who did their own self-published book, and they paid a lot of money through their health coaching certification organization. They were in alignment with, kind of an outfit that helped people self-publish. So they kind of cracked the whip, I think. They gave them some accountability. They gave them steps to take to get it done. But then they still ended up hiring me for a pretty lengthy period of time to help them actually get the social media done, or to actually get the hands-on, knowledge to do it. And then they were still left with having to sell it all on their own and take on that whole responsibility. So I don't think it's an either-or, that there's one way that's right or one way that's wrong. But I think sometimes when you hear the self-publishing thing and you're paying money to have a part in this, this program that helps you self-publish, just be careful that you know what you're really getting. If you still have to end up, taking care of all the books on your own and doing all the how-tos on your own, I think it can just feel like a little bit of a lonely experience. And it's all your story. So even if you just follow how that feels from an ego standpoint, if you've got the network, you've got the distribution possibilities, maybe that's not a big deal. But if you're just getting started out, that can feel like a pretty big deal, to be your own spokesperson completely on your own. And Sue, are you going to be able to stick around at all after we finish with Lisa and the end up, or do you need to skedaddle right at the end of the first hour?
No, I am here. I will be here.
Okay, well, good. We'll get through all the different pieces, and then we're going to stick around and be here. We can open up the mics and take questions. So thank you for your willingness to stay with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just so as I was able to kind of be found by Sue, and I do owe social media as a debt of gratitude for connecting the two of us, I was able to meet the next panelist, Lisa Harris, kind of by way of, I guess, mutual communications, but social media definitely helped bring us together to get us to learn a little bit more about what the other did. And she has just been my right-hand woman with CoThrive. She has been there since the very beginning when I had the idea. It was just a little spark in my head back in January of this year, and she showed up for that first workshop, and she has just been there and been there and been there. So Lisa, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a little bit of your success journey with where you've been as a writer, and just some backgrounds about all the different kinds of writing you do. Let me just turn it over to you. What would you like to share?
Well, thank you. Glad to be here. Well, I was just kind of reflecting back on my writing timeline, and it's always interesting when I do that, because I don't think I've been writing that long sometimes, and then I think, oh well, yeah, I did kind of write high school newspaper articles and that kind of thing. So I guess it started back when I was a kid. I would journal. I had a diary or journal, and then when I went into school, I was in middle school and high school, I worked for the school newspaper. When I went to college, I ended up writing a lot because of science reports and homework, that kind of thing. And then as I got into different kinds of jobs, I worked for a few nonprofits, and I always seemed to gravitate towards writing for newsletters and press releases and flyers and that kind of thing. And I actually ended up working for the federal government, and that's a bit of writing there too. And I ended up doing a newsletter. It was one of the first online newsletters, I think, that was out there in general. So I've been doing all kinds of writing through my younger years and school years. And when I actually started writing professionally, in terms of beyond these newsletters and things that I've been doing, just my own writing, was in 2007. I had gone to culinary school in Vermont and was really excited about local foods and farmers, and I realized that the state's capital newspaper didn't have a food column, and so I contacted the editor, who I actually knew at the time, and I said, so I'm interested in doing a food column. Are you interested in having someone write? And she wrote back to me and said, have you been reading our mind? We were just having a meeting about that, and we were planning to have a food section, a food column. How'd you like to be our first food column in the paper? So it was really easy to kind of secure that opportunity. I think a lot of it was because I was just so excited, and I had this intention and had this sense that it was something that I was to do. So it was really interesting how easy it was to get into that. So after that, I just wrote for the food column. Later on, I found another publication in Vermont that I would write for. And then when I got my first smartphone in 2011, I think it was, I decided to start a blog, because the guy who sold me my phone said he was a blogger, and I never didn't know much about smartphones at the time, so it was pretty exciting to think, wow, I can actually work on a blog anywhere with my phone and put pictures on my phone and upload them to the blog site and everything. So that was kind of my first foray into social media. About a couple years ago, I decided to try the National Poetry Writing Month Challenge and started putting a poem a day on my blog, and ended up getting a lot of followers, and that was kind of a surprise too. So I guess that was my next experience in social media writing for public eyes. I also write for part of a Buddhist community, Shambhala International, and they have a community online newsletter, and I co-host a kitchen wisdom column for them and get to talk to people from all over the world and find stories, find things to write about that relate to that Buddhist practice and community and food. And then when I moved back home here in Indiana a few years ago, I discovered that there was actually a retreat center with the organization I'm with up in Wisconsin, and connected with them. And they are really focused on sustainability, which is another topic area of interest of mine. My earlier degrees were in fisheries and wildlife management and environmental science. So I've been coming around full circle to just writing about food to writing about the environment and the Great Lakes. And I'm hoping to find opportunities to write stories for publications, organizations that bring people's attention to what's happening in the Great Lakes. So that's my latest foray in the writing world. Another thing that was kind of key in my life was when I was living in Vermont, I was working at a retreat center, and there was a writing program, a Buddhist writing program that they had there, and it was interesting because there were, I don't know, maybe 20 of us in the class, and at the very beginning, the first day, the person who was holding the program had us all go around and talk about, who we were and what we do. And I don't think anybody in that class considered themselves a writer. And so it was the first time when I really started thinking about what does it mean to be a writer. I think an author means you've been published, or you have a book, but what does it mean to be a writer? Because as I think both of you have mentioned, you and Sue, that a lot of people don't consider themselves writers. And it really, ever since then, it's really given me some, things to think about in terms of what it means to be a writer, and realizing that there's no formula, there's no requirements, there's no magic, anything magic in it. I think it's just having an intention to write and say something, and an intention to tell a story. And as both of you have also said, when you write from the heart, that's a really good way to get people's attention and help them learn. I think writing is really good for connection. One of my, missions in my life is helping people to make connection to themselves, each other, and the planet, and see what those relationships are all about. Make a relationship and explore that and acknowledge it. So I've had kind of a interesting set of events that have brought me here where I am now. So it's really, I would really encourage people who do write things to consider yourself a writer. It's so easy now with social media to put your work out there, put your words and your heart out there, and I think it can be overwhelming, but it's also an amazing place to go to learn things and find out what more people around the world are thinking and how they're feeling. You can write as short as a tweet, which can be very powerful, to having a blog, or find ways to connect with publications. You can go online and find submission guidelines for publications around the world. There are people who are looking for different kinds of writers. I really like to look at writing as telling stories, which Sue, you also mentioned. I think stories are really powerful. I think that once we can make that personal connection to something that's happening, something that's being described, that's a really good thing. Then you have some investment in it and you can relate to it. So I think stories are really powerful. And one other thing that I wanted to mention was in addition to approaching the newspaper in Vermont that seemed so easy, I was also able to approach an editor in the area with Edible Michiana, and it was just as easy to contact her and say, hey, I'd like to write for your publication. So it's kind of interesting how it seems like that energy just flows for me when I really have a good sense of this is something I really think would be good for me to do, and I have something to say. And I also had a chance to connect with a woman who started up a national publication, Yes Magazine, through Twitter. If you're really interested in writing for a publication, Twitter is an amazing resource to go and find out what somebody is doing in terms of their publication or what they're following, what they're looking for. The woman actually was one of my first Twitter followers, and we had some tweets that went back and forth, and next thing I knew, she asked if I wanted to write an essay for her publication. So it's really easy to get out there. I think what Sue's doing is really amazing, kind of letting writers do what they do without having to worry about all the details of putting together a publication, because that, to me, is kind of daunting. I've never published anything in a book before, and I really like the way that she talks about it and how Kathy's experiences sounded with that. But, you know, that sounds like a great resource. And when you do connect with somebody through a publication, they have editors that work with you, and it's a really, really great experience to work with an editor. You know, you put something out there, and that kind of relationship, speaking of relationships, that's another one I think is really exciting, to work with somebody who can help you express what you want to say, what you have to say professionally, and they get what you're saying enough to be able to help you craft what needs to be said and how it needs to be said. So.
Well, I just think you've got such great, I don't want to say a story, you've got multiple stories right there. The one thing that you said is, oh, it was easy because I knew that I was passionate about it and I wanted to write. But I also think probably what makes it easy for somebody to say yes is that you have a track record. You have something that they can go and look at. I know you've got several blogs that are kind of, you know, under construction, but what I want to say too is even if you don't have it all perfect, you don't have a blog set up, you can do a portfolio site like Lisa has done, and it seems like you like this portfolio site pretty well. Is that right?
Yeah, I found this online. It's called Journo Portfolio, and it's a nice visual site, and I'm able to put my articles and essays and whatever else, even blog posts on there. And it gives you a little profile up there, as you can see under my name. And I've had, I did approach another editor of another food-related online publication here, and I believe she went to the site and was able to see what I had to do. So you know, it's a real handy kind of resource, so that I don't have to. I was concerned about how to keep all of my writing together, because some of it is print, some of it is, you know, electronic, and this is a really nice way to put it all together.
Great. And I do want to say too that she not only said yes, you can write for us, but you got actually an ongoing paid column. Is that right?
Yes, I was able to talk to her about what I wanted to write, and she said, yeah, that'd be great. Just send in what you can, and we'll pay you, which is always exciting. But it's like, oh, I am a writer, okay.
Yeah, it definitely kind of turns a corner, I think, when somebody's saying, hey, we really value what you're doing and we're willing to pay you. So, you know, I think there are other reasons to write besides getting paid, for some of the reasons that Sue said, if it's an entree to speaking engagements or to build an associated business. But my whole thing is, you know, with social media, with blogs, with all the different places that you can put it out there, practice there, and just get your digital cookie crumb trail laid, so that you can allow the people who need what you have to say to be able to find you. And I think by being a little bit specific, by trending toward those things that really do make your heart go pitter-patter, it's a lot easier to be a more effective magnet when you're writing from the heart, which is another thing I think both you and Sue have emphasized. So yeah, I'm just so proud to have you as a Co-Thrive member and to have seen your growth over these last months, Lisa. And then back in, I think it was June, you also hosted a writer's retreat, which was really pretty cool. So you're kind of trying to help budding writers in that way, and people can opt in to your list to be notified about upcoming workshops. So
that was a cool thing to branch into too, to support other writers.
And it was very cool because it was a uniquely Lisa kind of event. I did have the privilege of being a part of that, and it was out in a beautiful, sustainable farm right alongside these, restored wetlands, and, we had local food from the farm and took breaks and took nature hikes and just kind of had a really, really peaceful place to work. So if you're in Lisa's in South Bend, Indiana, not awfully far from me, maybe 45 minutes or an hour away, if that's something that you think you would enjoy, I would say, hey, either reach out to Lisa via her LinkedIn link, which is there, or she's got miscellaneous other blogs and emails out there. But anything else you'd like to share before we get into, the question area?
Oh, I just think it's important to just take your writing seriously, but not too seriously that you have to, you feel like you need to judge yourself. Just enjoy it and follow your heart and just take it from there.
Great. Well, thank you. And Colleen had a question. She said, can you repeat the name of the portfolio website? And it's Journo, like journal, but with an O. Is that right? JOUR.com.
JOURNO portfolio.com.
Is that free, or is that a paid site?
It's free up until a certain number of posts that you put in there. But it's not much at all. I don't remember how much it is, but it's a really low price for them to handle holding all this stuff.
Right. Yeah, and I really love the layout. The way it looks is very clean and crisp, and I think pretty intuitive, especially if you have different kinds of writing. And Colleen also asked if that's a great place to start putting things that have been written in the past.
Yeah, I have a lot of things from early blogs, and I have my food column pieces in there, some of them from 2007. So
cool. Well, I want to thank you, and I'm sure we're going to have some more questions for you. So hopefully, are you able to stick around a little bit too into the second hour?
Sure. Yep.
Wonderful. Very, very good. Okay. Well, last of our panelists, we have Mr. Stephen Donaco, and good for him. He was requested to come down to Louisville. He's in Chicago is where he lives. But he had some people in Louisville who wanted to hire him as a speaker, and I'm not sure if it was related to his book or not. Frankly, he couldn't. He kind of had to fly and couldn't tell me, but he felt very badly. He really wanted to communicate what he had learned about self-publishing his first book. He wrote a book that was of a spiritual nature that he completely self-published, just figuring it out on his own. And he's been, really willing and able to give back to community members at Co-Thrive, and so he is doing this as a workshop, kind of an online workshop. We're going to try a different platform rather than GoToWebinar for this one. It's a new thing called blab.im, and it's in beta right now, but it's really very cool. So hopefully those of you who had trouble getting on for this webinar will not experience the same thing. It's much more fluid. People can just kind of pick up on it on Twitter. If you want to go on camera and ask a question, you can do that. It's highly interactive, and I think it's going to be kind of fun. So that'll be in 14 days. You'll be getting a prompt about that. I'll send you the email. But if that sounds like something that you would like to experience, we'll be covering that for, again, like 2 hours. And then, of course, anybody that's a Co-Thrive member, we can work on those lessons and how-tos in depth during our work sessions. So Stephen also was on our crowdfunding webinar that we hosted not long ago and talked about how he plans to use crowdfunding for his upcoming book. And that's kind of interesting. He's actually trying to kind of pre-sell, create a buzz in advance of doing the publication, and kind of bundling packages of books perhaps with churches or organizations or things like that, so that he's kind of got the demand before he really launches the book. So we'll expect to kind of see great things from him on his next book, but he is a self-published author for his last book as well. And I'm sorry I didn't put your website up here, Stephen, but it's Danako.com, just his last name, .com. And I will include that with a follow-up email as well. So we'll be hearing a lot more from him, even though not today. So if anybody came specifically for self-publishing, my apologies, just things happen. So we're going to open it up for questions, but I do want to just tell people, anybody again who's not a Co-Thrive member, a little bit what Co-Thrive is, because I have talked about it and haven't really exactly explained it. I've been a social media coach now. I'm in my 7th year, and the thing that I love about it but also frustrates me about it is that I want to help so many people, and I want to provide ongoing support for people who don't maybe have a revenue model yet, or just have an idea or need to work on things slowly. That can be pretty daunting to pay a consultant by the hour. So what I've done instead is to make Co-Thrive kind of in alignment with what I would consider might be more typical the gym membership cost, and it's $30 a month is the current monthly charge. You can try it free for 30 days just to say, what do you mean? What is a gym? What is this model? It's really never ever the same place twice. It's a mix of webinars like this one, but also work sessions where people can more fully digest and try out the ideas that they've talked about, and we can get into the how-tos and get into the hands-on, and also get into the social connections. So right now, some members are the panelists, some members are more passive and you're the audience. But during our Co-Thrive work sessions, we actually do connect people and ideas and experiences, with the technology. So it's a little hard to explain. The best way is just to try it. So if you go to cothrive.org/free, that will show you how you can try it out for 30 days, and you can see what the heck we're talking about. But basically, any Co-Thrive member can come to that, and you can ask me anything I know about, whether that's how to build an email list to help you sell your book, if you want to brainstorm about, how might I get started in writing, if you want to work on your LinkedIn profile to kind of transition you from what you're doing to suggest the idea that you want to be a writer, any of those things would be fair game. Lisa mentioned Twitter as being a good way to kind of hone in and find people that are interested in hiring writers or working with writers. If you don't know how to do that, that's another thing, I can help you with. And when I say I really should say Co-Thrive can help you with, because we've got more and more community members willing to help other members, which is very cool. So basically the idea is we get like-minded people who are creative and cooperative and put them all in one place, and we're going to get more done collectively and cooperatively together than we would separately. So I think it's a good time to enter into the questions, because we're getting a question from Lauren, who, Lisa, actually she's kind of from the food biz as well. She asked, is there a co-work space element? She thinks she needs accountability. I had a strong vision in my mind when I launched this. I actually did a vision board more than a year ago, and one thing I cut out and put on that vision board said online by design. And for me, that's what I'm doing, is the online component of it. However, I'm trying to work very closely with people who host brick and mortar spaces to kind of cross-refer. There's a co-working space in Valparaiso, Lauren, and I'm not sure if you're in Valpo or where you're located, but Eric Zoso is a member of the Facebook group for Co-Thrive, and he heads that up. In Michigan City, you're in Michigan City, okay. I'm not sure about Michigan City. I know they used to have the Entrepreneur Center up there, and I believe that closed some time ago. But let me give that a little bit of thought. I don't know of one off the top of my head. I think there's one in St. Joe, Michigan. That would be a little bit of a haul for you. I worked at a beautiful co-working place the last 3 days in Chicago. So I think it's getting to be, more and more of a thing that people realize that to be a writer or to be an entrepreneur, it's not always terribly convenient to work out of a Starbucks, much as we love their coffee. Sometimes you need more of an office kind of place. You do want to know that other people around you are doing the same thing. And I am trying to kind of build that in to the online space, but I get it that people also need a place to go. So if anybody would like the mic, just let me know via the chat, and I can open that up, or otherwise feel free to enter your questions or comments on the the chat as you've been doing. But I just want to say, some people did have to scoot. I know 2 hours is kind of a long time, but we've just got some lovely people here that I'm absolutely thrilled that could be on. Colleen Devine, who I've mentioned already. I met her through Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland, and she was in my Master Naturalist class as well. Kathy Hare, I'm going to unmute her. She is a founding member of Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland. And Kathy, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. It's so good to hear your voice and be on here with you all.
Great to have you. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, this has really been very helpful today. I've been thinking a lot about, upping my game with writing, and so it was like the universe was speaking through you as usual, right, Kathy?
Well, I try. I try. So we'd love to hear more about you specifically, but I also think the organization that you helped found, Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland, is kind of really interesting too. You support, I know media is one of your sectors that you try to bring together, and arts, which would probably also include writing. You probably have your own connections there within your group that might overlap onto this. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And we're gearing up for our big event right now, which is the main thing on my mind on October 10th, where we're actually celebrating 12 Golden Innovators in the Chicagoland area, which includes Indiana and Michigan and Wisconsin and a few other outlying areas, and doing good work, doing work that is creating a better world and very conscious world and helping us to evolve in that direction. And I'm happy to say on here that, Kathy, that you are one of the honorees this October.
I am thrilled about that, and I was very thrilled that you even specifically recognized Co-Thrive rather than simply my environmental work, which, I love both of those things. So I'm just going to flash the screen online here. But gosh, Sue, I think a lot of people that are in Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland probably have plenty of stories to tell that would be perfect for, your upcoming, upcoming titles. That would just be such a great matchup. And
Yeah.
Barbara Marx Hubbard is going to be presenting the awards. I mean, I've just been a Barbara Marx Hubbard fan for a long, long time. Yeah, I don't know if you find yourself in the Chicago area, but man, would that be awesome. But anyway.
That would be great. That's quite a trip from Florida, but that would be an awesome trip, I think.
And you see, that's why I'm online by design, because I want to deal with people that are everywhere, not just local, but, well, we can connect the dots. So, yeah.
I know Colleen Devine is coming, so.
Oh, awesome. Great.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, so it'll be a wonderful, I hope everybody can come, but, as far as Co-Thrive and what the work you're doing, it really does, it just means everything, what you're doing, because this is co-creation at its best, and I know, I've told you that personally before, and even though it's just beginning, the energy is right for it, and this is what people want to do. They want to come together and co-create, and they have a purpose. We're in our DNA. We're structured to evolve the planet into a better, more loving, caring place to be. And anyone with a voice and expressing that information is is on that path with us together. We're all together. And so, yeah, I love anybody to come to that, but, you know, just knowing that you're out there is just powerful. So thank you to everyone.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I just was thrilled to get that email last year saying I'd been nominated. I'm like, you're kidding. But again, it's kind of the writing. It's kind of just going out there and doing your thing. And when you're doing it in a public way, not waiting until it's perfect. You know, if I would have waited till I had CoThrive perfect or 219 Green Connect perfect, you know, just wouldn't have gotten started. So I would just say start writing, you know, just to come back to the theme of what we're talking about. You know, some people make video or some people make art, and that's certainly a very tangible thing out there too. But if you have it within you to also write about it, it is easier for search engines like Google to find you when you leave those words out there. It's not necessarily an either or, but a both. And I just think, you know, boy, I know some really fantastic people that all have wonderful stories. And yeah, I just would love to know that they're recording them in blogs that I could share, or to be in perhaps an upcoming, you know, anthology book alongside me. I think that would be just awesome. I'd love to hear the people that are, you know, founders of Chicagoland Conscious Evolutionaries in there. Just so many great stories. But thank you, Kathy. Did you want to say anything else about personally what you're working on, or any writing questions for Sue or Lisa?
Well, you know, the one thing I've been writing since I was a little girl, too. It's part of what I do. I'm an artist as well. And I, you know, for my work with Conscious Evolution, I want to, you know, bring my voice out there more. I'm, you know, been teaching the classes through Barbara's work and creating these events. But I don't do Twitter. I've gotten very good at Facebook. I feel I've gotten good. But I still have a long way to go even with Facebook. And so what I'm doing is I'm trying to, you know, coordinate my writing along with my artwork to put the word of Conscious Evolution and Barbara's work out there, as well as each of the individual people who are doing this work. And so all of our honorees, I want to, you know, possibly interview them. You know, I was thinking of doing like a little video recording interview with each of the honorees, and, you know, I know people like to watch video. So that, I guess that would be my question. I know you can hear a lot of questions in there. You know, is Twitter the way to go for me? You know, should I just jump into doing these little video interviews that I'm thinking about? Or what do you think? I mean, I also can do the, you know, the you know, I could create some artwork with the memes of, you know, what is our momentum moving forward for conscious evolution for our whole world and our planet. And those I know are popular. I'll shut up now.
Please don't shut up. Well, would you mind if I took a kind of a graphic attempt at answering that question? Then I'd love to hear Kathy and Sue's, you know, maybe additional responses. They probably got their own unique lens. But this is something that I just think is so important that I continually keep referring back to it. During the early CoThrive workshops, we didn't even have any PowerPoint slides or anything. It was more like I just find something online and say, okay, here's a picture. Let me pin this on Pinterest. So that's what I'm looking at right now, is actually a Pinterest board that's called, oh boy, it's Improving Your Online Presence. So I think this speaks to your question, Kathy. I really see your blog as kind of being the mothership where your ideas should live first, you know, in whatever capacity you have to develop out your content. But then all of these other things like video sites or micromedias like Twitter would be considered a micromedia. You know, it's kind of a microblog, or social networks like Facebook, as being a place where you can constantly refer people back to what you've written on your blog. Partly because you want to own that real estate. It's just too important to host that important content somewhere else and trust that they're going to care for it, or, you know, respect privacy laws or whatever. I'm not saying they're not doing a good job of it, but we don't own that real estate. So I think putting it somewhere where you actually own it is, number one, a good idea to protect your own best interest, but also to bring people back to where they can find out more about you, and you can thoughtfully direct them around. When we just see things pop up on Twitter, it's great for awareness, but it's not necessarily great to continue the conversation or for them to take that next step. So I think it's not an either or, but a both and. But in my perfect world, how I would direct that traffic would be put it on your blog first and then tweet a shortened link out to it with some kind of compelling hook that brings somebody back to incent them to want to read the whole thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Right now we don't have a blog. I have a personal one, but we don't have one for Conscious Evolutionaries. We have a website, which I know is, similar. But so I think, what I'm hearing is if I start a personal blog that would tie back to the Conscious Evolutionary website and Facebook page and all of that, that would be the best way for me to kind of, I don't want to say control it, but to, choreograph it.
Yeah, and when you say website or blog, I think that the lines really have blurred quite a bit because blogs no longer look like blogs necessarily. Sometimes they can look exactly like websites. They just happen to have, blog capabilities. And kind of like to involve Sue in this a little bit because it dawns on me that they start a blog for each title and invite authors to submit articles, and I haven't been the best at taking advantage of that, but I intend to, that kind of allow all those authors' voices to come together and populate the blog. It can be a teaser for what the book will be about. It's another place for authors to be heard or known. And another thing that it can do is for you, the blog host, which could be Conscious Evolutionary Chicagoland, would mean you don't necessarily have to come up with all the content. You can invite, guest writers, guest bloggers, and reserve the right to, approve the post before they were included. But,
Yeah.
I mean, those are just some jumping off thoughts, and I'd love to hear what Sue, maybe has to say about that.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we did it, a lot of reasons. One of the reasons, obviously, was to get some more exposure for our authors and to give them a platform for that. And, the content that they shared on our blog was also content that they put on their own blogs or their own websites or on Facebook or somewhere else as well. I will tell you, many of our authors actually didn't have their own blogs either. So they thought, well, this is great. This is a place for me to put an article, about something that I'm passionate about. So that was another good reason for that. And one of the other reasons that we did that was because, obviously, the fresh content, keeps us higher in the search engine rankings and those things as well. And we knew it was aligned content because obviously our authors are aligned with whatever the title of the book is, and whatever they were sharing was, aligned. So we didn't have any issues with, approving content or anything like that. And it's pretty simple to do. Whenever we set up, I know, and I say it's simple, I don't do the setup of it. Like that's what my partner is for. She's a, technical web goddess, and she handles everything for us. But setting it up, I understand, is fairly simple, but we had to provide passwords to all of the authors in order for them to be able to sign in and do that. So if you want to have additional people being able to post directly, you might have to do something like that. Although, Kathy, you were talking about giving approvals. I guess it just depends on how it's set up.
Yeah, it's a feature that you can implement, but again, if you've got pre-approved, authors or contributors that you already know are in alignment, that's possibly not something you really, need to do. And well, I'm thinking, Lisa, in a way, you're kind of doing something similar to this when you're writing your contribution to the online magazine that you do. I don't know if you send the article off and then they publish it for you, or is it set up kind of like a blog where you submit it online? I'm curious about that.
With the Kitchen Wisdom column, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I think so.
The online newsletter. Yeah, I actually send I'm a co-host, and I send it to the editor, and then the editor takes it and puts it in whatever format.
Okay.
There's another publication I've written for, and they actually have an online platform where all the writers go in and you can upload photos for your article, and then you upload and edit your article or column, and then the editors will go over it once and then set it up physically. So there are a lot of different ways of doing that. I just want to say something else about Twitter. I was just thinking Twitter is interesting because it's like when you go to a conference and the speaker is finished and everybody goes out and kind of mingles in the in the hallway. It's almost like that mingling time in the hallway. It's quick and dirty kind of, and it's a good way to get a good broad spectrum of what's out there and to put yourself out there, like in a little bit. But yeah, I think Twitter's good for getting the word out and seeing who's out there, and you can hit certain interest groups. But in terms of actual writing, it's not really a writing platform, except unless you're really into just 140 characters, which is kind of fun to play with.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, so part of it is just, again, about ease of somebody consuming the content. Because Twitter, it's wonderful, but it's almost like the shiny object syndrome, where you get on there and you're like, oh, what are they talking about? Let me jump into this. Let me jump into that. But once you kind of have somebody in your space, or when I say your space, it could be your collective space if you're part of an online magazine like Lisa is, or part of a book title like Sue hosts. I mean, for that, I feel like for all intents and purposes, I would call that the same vision that I've got of the center here. It's just where you're being intentional about a place to store your content, whether it's a collective project or each author individually, as opposed to more of a timeline kind of thing where Twitter and Facebook, you just kind of post things up there that you really don't expect somebody to go back in 2 years and find that article or that poem that you wrote, because it's buried under all these other posts and updates. But the thing that's cool about a blog is that you can use tags and categories and kind of navigational assistance that help people find your content not only on Google but within the blog. So you can kind of say, if you just enjoyed reading this post about spiritual media in Chicagoland, you may also enjoy this one. And the reader kind of has a suggested path to get from one to the next. I might be getting a little off topic here, but there are just a lot of reasons why I kind of like the blog in the middle of the system instead of putting all the heavy lifting on Twitter, Facebook, where it's easy to do, but we don't really retain that voice of authority. We don't kind of claim our space quite as much. And so I just have to say, Colleen didn't actually post a question, but she says that she's ready to jump back in and talk about or do all the things that we're talking about, and she feels her fear dissolving away. So I'm going to credit our esteemed panelist for helping at least one writer with helping her fear dissolve away. So that's pretty cool. I'd say it's worth having this conversation if that's the outcome. So any other questions, or anybody want to just talk platforms or next steps, or just kind of brainstorm on anything at all? Lauren, I'd love to hear what you're thinking about. I know she said she had taken some time off for kind of raising kids and doing things, and she's really looking for ways to kind of plug back in and get started, and we didn't have much time to go further than that. We had several other people who I know really enjoyed what we were talking about, but they had to kind of get going. They apologized for having to leave early. So we will stick around as posted, or if we're kind of done with questions for the panelists, I don't want to necessarily have them hanging out if we don't have any more writing-oriented questions. Lauren says she's absorbing it all. She needs to narrow her focus for right now. So that's kind of an interesting point that you just mentioned. I actually was facing that with my next title I'm writing for Powerful You. Sue, I'm not sure quite where we are right now on the first draft, but I almost felt like I had too much information. I had too many ideas, and it was hard to get the word count down. And that's part of where an editor can certainly help you. You know, if you're part of Sue's organization and you're going through that, it's something we try to do on a lesser extent, you know, to a lesser extent within CoThrive, although that's not what I do for a living. Sometimes people find that, you know, if you just start talking to somebody, they can help you. They can help you kind of hone in on, you know, where that maybe should be narrowed down or could best be narrowed down, where the pieces kind of naturally coalesce, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, to me, Kathy, that's what the editor is for. Like that, you know, they are first of all, they're professionals. They're trained at how the flow should go and just all of the, you know, other stuff. But you know, to us, you know, and because of the types of stories we do, coming from that heart space, it really is about, you know, more that feeling place. And I know, like you said, you might have too much information or something like that about what you're trying to get across. And I think, Kathy, in yours, you were talking more not about a story so much as really lessons for the readers. Is that right?
Yes, and that honestly is where it trips me up a little bit, because when it's a lesson, it kind of feels like you could keep going on and teaching, but when it's hurt, it's somehow, the story of the hurt just seems a little bit more easy to tune into once you've really got the idea, you know, and ready to go.
Yep, I think that's true. But what you're talking about too is not just for somebody who's writing something. How do you, you know, get it down to a digestible form, and then how do you decide, okay, what's the cutoff? How many points do I really want to make in this? However many words I have to make it here, and that's really the key. If you want to go wide or deep, you know, those are kind of the things. So do you make 3 points and really expand on them, or do you make 10 points and just have little snippets? So those are kind of questions that you have to ask yourself too, because what is it that the reader is going to want from you, and what do you feel is the best service, I think, to the reader? It's the same, I guess, thing that a speaker would come up against, you know, trying to decide, okay, well, I have a 30-minute speech to give. How many points do I make, you know, and how broadly do I go on this? And so same thing, same what you're talking about. I think bouncing it off other people is great, and that's why we need each other so much. I would be interested to put that out to Lisa, since Lisa, you are a professional writer. And, you know, what is your process, Lisa? How do you decide things like that?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. What was that?
But how do you, we're talking about how to decide what to write. You know, Kathy was saying she's got all this information. You know, how does she decide what she really wants to put in her chapter? I was wondering what your process is. How do you decide, you know, if you're going to go, you know, like maybe how many points you want to make in a piece, or do you go broad, or do you go deep? How do you make that decision?
Kind of a tough one. Well, sometimes I've been given an assignment, but when it's just up to me, I just try to find what something that I'm looking to reflect for that publication, I guess. An idea or a principle, or just something that's kind of like an anchor, and then I'll look for a person or an organization or some kind of a story to kind of shed some light on that, you know, just to put some kind of words around that topic or that idea. And I need to be, it's interesting because with writing it's easy to be sitting inside all the time and trying to write something, but I find that I need to get out in the world, and when I'm out in the world, then I'm more open to seeing things I can write about. And then once I do find something, I'll interview someone, or I will do some research around the topic or the place or person, and somehow it's just I'm able to filter things down into something that kind of makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I should. Oh, I'm sorry.
What I was going to ask also is, I'm sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
I said I'm not sure if I should really admit this with Sue on the line, but last year when I was having to come up with my chapter for Women Living Consciously, Book 2, I mean, I just was like thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. And when I finally went out on a walk, actually with another Co-Thrive member, Charlotte, who happens to be a friend of both Lisa and mine, you know, it was going for that walk in the woods and just talking about it at the Indiana Dunes. And I was like, well, of course, that's what I'm going to write about. And I knew exactly, you know, but it was just something about sharing my passion for it, sharing the idea with someone else. And Deb Durall was also there. I was actually giving her composting worms in the parking lot when we met up to go hiking, and I was like, how can I not write about composting? Like, I'm so passionate about that. And I did, although the editor was a little confused at first why I would be talking about composting in a book about, you know, consciousness. But it all came together. It really did. So I think that whole thing of being in your head but then getting out in the world, talking to people, you know, some mix of that. I don't have a ton of experience. I'm not a professional writer like you are, Lisa, but that really resonated with me.
Yeah, I think just talking about it, I'll even do that with my mom here, you know, I'll just say, hey, I was thinking about this, and just talking something through really seems to help.
And I will say when I came to your writing workshop as well, I brought my journal over the summer, and I just kind of went back through all of that, and I almost made like a greatest hits page or two, and like what still resonates with me after writing all of this stuff. Like the stuff in the journal sometimes can get kind of wacky. I feel like with the blog I can be a little wacky, but the things in the journal are for me to decide, and I kind of start there and then maybe cross-reference that with my vision board. Like what do I really feel is on point with my life purpose? And it seems like a lot of the people that I tend to attract into Co-Thrive and into my life are people that aren't real simple. You know, they've got, oh, I was a chef, and now I'm doing environmental work, but I did environmental work. I'm talking about Lisa now. And, you know, now I want to blend these two, but I've kind of had similar things. I was doing marketing, but then I do all this environmental work, and I'm like, I don't want them to be separate anymore. That's kind of how Co-Thrive got created. So I just think that when you have a blog, you have a lot of leeway, especially if it's a personal blog, to talk about whatever the heck you want, and you can investigate different strands. Or, you know, that journal portfolio thing like Lisa showed us, that could be divided up by articles, poetry, what have you, but it could also be topical, I would imagine. Is that true, Lisa? Could it be, you know, environmental?
Yeah. Yeah, I could divide it up, and I probably will at some point. Another thing that I've done is sometimes I'll have a little notebook that I'll keep with me, and whenever I may be anywhere and something catches my eye or my heart or my, you know, my memory, and I'll just jot down a little sentence of something or some words that, like if I was out, you know, by a river, you'd say, you know, I saw a blue fish jump or something. I mean, it could be simple as that, or it could be more complex. And then when I go back to that notebook, and it can be years later, sometimes I'll run across something in it, and just those few words can bring everything back too, and I can actually write something a little more substantial about it. So it's like little nuggets that I can keep as potential ideas or something I don't want to lose, and I think, oh, maybe I can write about this sometime. And it's amazing how I can actually, how people can, you know, pull something out of their past from quite a ways back and be able to remember it and write about it.
When I was in Chicago yesterday, I was kind of taking a different path to work, and I walked past Harold Washington College, where I'd taken a creative writing class when I used to live in Chicago. And I remember now what fun it was that our teacher, our instructor, would give us a prompt, and she would say, you know, here's the situation. Like, you just heard the tail end of this conversation, and it was, you know, an active verb, and you just had to write it down. And then about a place, like fill in a place. And then, you know, she'd give you some kind of crazy setup, almost like those, what were those things, Mad Libs, where it made no sense. But then you had this crazy outline, and then it almost freed up your brain to, like, write something. I mean, that would be more for creative writing, not for, you know, article writing or something like that. But it was just amazing what interesting, creative stuff that people were able to pull off with that kind of a prompt. And sometimes I guess just the benefit of being on restricting yourself to one idea and disciplining yourself to go, with that idea for even a short time. You can always leave it if you don't like it. But it seems like movement is important, just to, get the pen moving, get the computer keyboard going, and maybe we could talk a tiny bit about that. Some people really feel like, oh, I would be lost without my keyboard. But Lisa, I know you said you feel very much that something about the act of picking up a pen, am I remembering this correctly, is something that you feel is important?
Well, yeah, every kind of thing that you use to write is different. Like I write differently when I'm on my computer versus on the typewriter versus on my phone or on pen or pencil and paper. And it was interesting because when I was doing the poetry, and I don't really consider myself a poet, but I love putting things out there. I wrote poems better with my phone than I did on my computer. So it's almost like accessing different ways of seeing the world and expressing it in different different meanings.
Cool. Well, that's great. I really appreciate both of you just sharing from your experiences and your hearts. And we do have a couple questions, actually. Lauren has asked, what kinds of stories is Sue looking for in the future? And Colleen had also asked about the cost associated to be part of Powerful You Publishing. How would you best address that, Sue?
Well, the stories are about the book. So we take the title of the book, and so Keys to Conscious Business Growth is a teaching guide for entrepreneurs. So that would be, if you are a coach or a consultant or a mentor or a trainer, and you help people to grow their business and stay aligned with their values. So from that perspective, it would be any sort of lessons that you would like to, teach. So it's really about that. And the stories, the chapters that authors, or we're accepting from authors, can contain a story and lessons, a combination of both, and we'd like to have a little bit of both, even if the story is just a small part in the beginning, kind of like a setup, and then you have your lessons, or you could have a big long story kind of teaching the lessons in the process and then outlining the specific lessons at the end for people to use in their businesses. The other book we have, Healthy, Abundant, and Wise, it's really kind of wide open. I mean, if you think about this book title, it's really about any sort of story of transformation that you have had in your own life in any of those areas. So Healthy, Abundant, and Wise, so the healthy part, that's about a physical body issue, probably could be about emotional issue that you've had, and you've tackled, you've gone through, you've made it through. How you've done that in a conscious way in your life, or maybe not so conscious way. Everybody goes through things differently. So it could be anything about physical, emotional, spiritual health, well-being. The abundance part, obviously it's not just about money, but it can be about money or finances, or maybe how you've grown your business even. We have one of our authors actually who's sharing a story about how, they had a regular job, 9-to-5 job. They simply were not happy doing what they're doing, and they decided to go out on their own, and what that journey was for them financially, because it was tough, because they didn't have that security of an income and health benefits and all those things, and then how they made it through, and they turned their passion for what they wanted, and plus they wanted that freedom in their life, and how they did that and turned it into a thriving business. So that's an abundance story. Could be an abundance of anything, though. If you think about, abundance in a broad sense, an abundance of freedom in your life, or an abundance of love in your life, in your relationship. So it could be really anything, could be construed as abundance. The other types of story would be Healthy, Abundant, and Wise. It's really something, when I think of the word wisdom, I think of something deeply profound that has really changed you, or some new perspective that you might have on life that you did not have before. And how did you come upon that wisdom? So I think of a story like that. We have women and men who are sharing stories of, a cancer journey, or a disease journey, or a loss journey, grieving of a loss of a relationship, a loss of a loved one, a loss of a pet. We've even had people share stories about their pets. And any kind of story like that would fit into that book as well. So it's really, that's stories of transformation that will help and encourage and inspire people on their own life journey, letting them know that, hey, look, you might be going through some tough times, but hey, I made it through and you can too. Those kind of stories. That's basically the heart of what that is. So those are the different types of stories that we're looking for. The cost is all outlined on our website, but basically the packages, they're all inclusive, including the training, all of the technical publishing aspects like the editing, the proofreading, the layout, the design work, working with and talking with our editor for developmental work, and all of the training that's involved. And also books and bookmarks are included with the packages. And right now, we still have our early bird. We actually have an early bird that ends next week on Wednesday, September 23rd, and the early bird pricing, we have 3 different packages basically, and all packages are the same, including everything except for the number of books and bookmarks you receive. And the book packages are either you get 100, 250, or 400, and the prices start at $13.99, so $1,399, and you get the 100 books plus everything else that goes with it. And then you can sell your books. First of all, it creates that platform for you, but then you can also turn around and sell those books, and our cover price is $20. So if, say, you bought a 100-book package, it's 20 books for $20 times 100 books, you'd actually make $2,000 off that. So you're actually making money when you sell your books as well. But again, it's so interesting. The reason people tell us, and we've done surveys for authors after they've been involved with the book process, and we say, what was your main reason for doing this book? And a lot of them say there's a lot of reasons. They want to grow their business and things like that, but every single one, without exception, has always said, because I want to help other people with my story. I want to assist somebody else. And I think, at a base level, we all know that's why we're all here, to help each other, and that's part of our purpose for being here, and part of our passion is to help other people, and story is a great way to do it. But so the costs are all outlined on our website, and we have payment plans as well, so you don't have to pay everything up front. And for the people actually in Co-Thrive, I would like to offer and you'll hear this, if you go to our website, you can actually sign up for an introductory call, and it will give you literally all the information saying, hey, here's the process, here's everything that's included, here's what happens when you're involved, here's what we're looking for. And there's a webinar there that you can listen to the replay actually. And our new early bird date, though, is September 23rd. I think it says something different on that replay because we had extended the early bird because we wanted to open up to more authors, and we extended. And these books, by the way, both launch in early 2016. Keys to Conscious Business Growth is launching at the end of January. Healthy, Abundant, and Wise is launching at the end of February. So it's coming up right away. So if you're thinking, hey, I want to be an author, I want to get out there in a big way, well, you can do that in a few short months. And there is a bonus code when you listen to that informational call, and it's bonus 200, and that will allow you to take $200 off any package. So whether that's a 3-pay package or a 5-pay package or 400 books or 100 books, whatever it is, you'll be able to save $200 off any package. And certainly, if you have any specific questions, I'm very happy to talk with you. You can find our phone number on the website or send an email to us. We have one of those the pop-up things where you can send us a message, and I'd be more than happy to talk with anybody who's interested in this.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you. And I think that is, we've got a couple different questions coming in that are a little bit specific and probably better handled, on one of those replay calls or, live with you one-on-one. But, one of the services that Sue provides or Powerful You provides, once again, is it Linda Albright? I'm trying to remember who is the person that helps with putting the packages together, or there was somebody else that was helping with that. But trying
Linda Albright. You're talking about packages of their own, like for program packages?
Exactly. So if you just look at selling the books, it's like, yes, okay, I could possibly, make that back if I sell all the books. But, actually, Stephen is a great example of this. He is kind of bundling the books in advance, trying to kind of crowdsource it, and he's playing the odds there where he's saying, hey, you get me as a speaker, and that includes 50 books, like for your church organization, and I'm going to come and speak to you about this topic, so that's kind of an interesting play on that too. But if you just look at the books, then that can seem a little daunting to get there, perhaps, one at a time. But if you look at where could I go where there are, groups that care about this, or, people that need this kind of topical information, sometimes you can almost reverse engineer. which might seem formulaic, but in another way, if you're really heart-based and you're driven by helping people, in a way, to me, it takes the ego out of it, and you're saying, who do I envision myself helping? If I want to help more people, who could I be in front of? You know, hundreds or dozens or however many people you want to help. What would I be in front of them saying? You know, what in my heart needs to be shared and would really connect with those people? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And Kathy, I just want to say some of the stuff you just talked about how to put together packages, or how can I reach more people with this, and who should I get in front of. That call on our website, How Authors Make Money, It's Not What You Think. It's not just about making money, but it's things like that. So how can you, so you go to someplace, and instead of just receiving, $500 or $1,000 for your speaking engagement, you say, okay, will you purchase books for everybody in the audience, that's one of the things that happened for me that was really terrific, and I didn't expect to do that, but I sold 120 books that way, and it was great, it was wonderful, and of course they want to reduce price for that, but that's okay, because then if you think about the reason that you wrote whatever you wrote in the first place was to help people, now you have 120 more books in people's hands.
Mm-hmm. And you have a picture of yourself in front of 120 people and a book signing, which
Exactly.
is, starts to kind of feed the credibility that you are an author that speaks to large groups. So it's just kind of like taking that step and saying, okay, here's what I envision success looks like, so what pieces are necessary? And, again, kind of reverse engineering. And so, even if you come in at the low end of the book package and you need to get more, I mean, I think you can buy them on Amazon for discount, is that right? Or am I wrong?
Actually, you buy them directly from us for a discount. Yes.
Okay, there you go. So if you're like, hey, what do you know? I actually became more famous than I realized. you can kind of add on, which would be a good problem to have. But yeah, I mean, I just want to say something about speaking. I never thought I would become a public speaker at all. I mean, that was just not in my cards or something I aspired to do. But really, when I started my marketing business, what I found is I would go and talk to one person about what I do, and we would perhaps spend an hour, or more than likely, because I really want to be helpful, we would spend several hours with me trying to help that person or explain what I do. And at the end of that time, only that person knew what I did. So it was basically a sales call. It took half my day. And then maybe they bought from me, maybe they didn't. But what I found was when I started doing speaking, I could say, hey, this is press release worthy, or this is webinar worthy, or this is whatever worthy. I can invite more people to that conversation. I can get in front of more people. And then all of a sudden, it just becomes a different thing. And you build the leverage, and then therefore, it made me have to become a speaker, because that's, again, how I could help more people. So it's just funny what you can do when you're motivated by helping people, what you can make yourself do. I might be a little off topic again for the writing, but well, it seems like the questions are kind of wearing down. I think we've had some interested people. Colleen says that she's going to try the journal portfolio and her own blog for a while. She thanks all the panelists for answering. She's got some ideas about even stories that she might contribute to Healthy, Abundant, and Wise. And again, I'm not going to share what those are, because we want to keep her story until she decides to share it. But it sounds like really, really good ideas. So I want to thank Lisa and Sue both for joining us. Thanks to our audience for being here. Some of you say, I'm not asking questions, I'm just here to be a sponge. That is absolutely okay too. I hope that this helped you. And we hope to see you on CoThrive or back again at one of our free webinars at the very least. You're more than welcome to come to these public webinars, and happy to have you. Please do tell others. That's kind of the way we grow and the way that we leverage what we're trying to do. So thank you to everyone for being a part of this. I think it was very successful and a lot of great information was shared. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.